Alright, so as more and more cards are getting revealed so far, it is also time for another review. This is the third review I'm doing, and this is the review about the cards that have been revealed in the last 5 days. We got a lot of cards to talk about, so let's not waste too much time and go directly to the cards that I want to talk about as they are having been revealed. And the first one is one of the 2 Druid legendaries that has been revealed. It is the Splintergraft, an 8 mana legendary for the Druid. The 8 mana legendary, choose a friendly minion at a 10/10 cost to your hand that costs 10. So the first look of this card is of course that you see it as an 8 mana 8/8 that adds a 10 mana minion to your hand. First thinking about that, it's definitely way too expensive to really make it worth. It's not really that you can like have a minion that for 10/10 you already need to have it on the board and then you copy it. But there are some really nice combinations you can make work with this card. I was thinking of the new Druid legendary that I will go to afterwards. But there's also like an Arcane Tyrant that you for example can like copy to make it like a 10/10, but you can make it cost for 0. So there are some like really benefits you can make work with this card, adding cards that are cheaper in the cost. Like as you are copying a 10/10 and it costs 10, the thing you want to do about to make this card really good is to make the cost less than 10. And there are cards, like in WoW there are a lot of cards possible, but you can also make it with like duplicate cards. You can think about Double Gangster, you can think of the Chain Gang. Having like 2 times a 10/10 taunt in your hand can be really good. So there are some really nice like copy cards that can work well. Maybe there are some more echo cards also still coming in that can maybe work. You can also do it with cards like Stone Tusk Boar and suddenly you have a 10/10 with charge in your hand. So there are some really additional combinations. And this is definitely also the direction I think that the Druid will go to. The Druid will have a more of a mechanic where you can go for a little bit more miracle plays. The cards that the Druid gets are not like directly that like OP or broken, but they have a lot of like cool miracle mechanics. So that's the way Druid goes. It continues in the way that Aviana, the Coon was, and we get more and more cards from around that. Really cool. I'm definitely, Druid is one of the classes I'm the most excited about, as it seems like it keeps being the more miracle big class to go for. And this was the legendary I was also talking about. The Druid legendary that might make like also having great synergy with the card we just saw before. This is Aviana. So not the Aviana that we already had as 9 mana. No, it's a 5 mana Aviana. 5 mana 3/7. On each player's turn, the first card played costs 0. So you see the miracle card, you see the miracle effect of this card. If the Aviana is on the board, if you then have a 10 mana card in your hand, hey, it suddenly costs 0. That is the way that the Druid wants to make it work. The one thing that might be really hard for this is like it has to stick on the board. Like the card has to not die, and that can be a little bit of a problematic thing with this Aviana. How can you make this card work without like it directly dying on the board? It is on each player's turn, so it's also what I suppose to be on the start of the turn, so you cannot go Aviana and another card. No, the Aviana is like on the player's turn, so if you play this, you cannot follow it up directly with a 0 mana minion. So it really has to be like a card that sticks on the board. Yes, your opponent has first the turn that it can make a card cost 0, but that will probably not be as powerful as you can do it. It's more the problem, can you let this minion be stuck on the board? Can it stay there? Maybe you want additional defensive spells that like defend it, play it with taunts, and then Aviana might be really strong, and then you can like play an ultimate infestation for 0 mana, guys. WoW doesn't like that, right? WoW doesn't like that. So there are some great combinations in that way. We'll have to see if we can make it work. But the 2 Druid legendaries definitely have some synergizement in each other. And hey, who knows what is still coming. Up next, the Toxmonger. Toxmonger, we are now moving on to the Hunter. And the first one is a 4 mana 2 for whenever you play a 1 mana cost minion, give it poisonous. So 4 mana 2/4 is a little bit undervalued in stats. But with the potential of giving poisonous to 1 mana minions, it can definitely be get a powerful concept in a more slower hunter, a more mid-rangey hunter. Giving this card, for example, giving a poisonous to a Stone Dust Boar can be really powerful. Giving poisonous to maybe even an alley cat can already be something nice. It's definitely another card that like directly seems so like as an insanely broken card, but it can be just like that extra card that a mid-range hunter kind of wants to play, as it kind of wants to play some 1-drops. Yes, you can play it in Quest Hunter, but I mean, guys, have we ever seen Quest Hunter really going off? Quest Hunter is still like every card that is like stacking with 1 mana cards. We all have the Quest Hunter in mind, but I'm still having a little bit my doubts on that. There are some really great combinations also with cards like Elven Archer. Give Elven Archer poison and suddenly it is an assassinate. At least that is how I suppose it works. So there are some really nice combinations with this card that maybe can make like the mid-range hunter. Being a mid-range hunter struggles a little bit to become on board. So I think that can be a thing that makes the Quest Hunter or the mid-range hunter a little bit more powerful. Next up is a new hunter card. What is a removal? The Wing Blast. 4 mana, deal 4 damage to a minion. If a minion died this turn, this cost 1. Really powerful card. Really powerful card. When I first took a look at this card, I was like, had a little bit my doubts, but the more I was thinking about it, the more I started to like this card. It is a 4 mana card that deals 4 damage to a minion, but really often you can start your turn by either trading a minion, killing a minion with your weapon, or anything like that. And I think you will really have consistency in letting this card cost 1 mana. And for 1 mana, dealing 4 damage to a minion is pretty powerful. I don't think this is necessarily like a card that, well, you're probably gonna play it in your Spell Hunter, but I definitely think this is more like a card from mid-range hunter. A mid-range hunter that we know hunter for. The more like Houndmaster, Savannah high main hunter decks that have early minions too, that want to like trade a bit away. In decks like that, this is can be a really powerful card. And 1 mana, deal 4 damage to a minion is really powerful. Yes, I know what you might think. Hey, hunter dealing damage to a minion, I don't care, I want to hit the face. Sure, but still, the card is strong. Think about what Flanking Strike kinda does too. Flanking Strike is a really strong 4 mana card that you see hunters playing with too. Hunter has a little bit of a struggle dealing with minions on board. Think about it this way, guys. If you deal damage to a minion, you invest damage into the face. You deal with the minion, and so your minions that you have on board can go face. So this kinda still does damage to the face. There you go. Think it's gonna be a powerful card, and I definitely think we're gonna see this some play. Next up, it is the Red Trap, a new secret for the hunter. 2 mana secret. After your opponent plays 3 cards in a turn, summon a 6/6 red. Wow, that's a pretty powerful benefit of the secret. But how is it gonna how consistent is the secret gonna be is a little bit the question. It is definitely a counter to the priest weapon, guys. If you think about it, the priest weapon that if you play 3 spells, you summon a 5/5 or something, right? And then you play this, and it's like, hey, I summon a 6/6, easy. So yeah, here you have the priest weapon counter. It can be powerful like to some miracle decks. The only problem is like a lot of miracle decks are like doing it in 1 turn. It's a good card against miracle, a miracle rogue maybe. I don't know. Like I feel a little bit like the consistency. Like if you know this card can be around, it can definitely be like a tech card that can people get off guard sometimes. It's a good card against priest in general, I think. There's like more good priest archetypes. There are quite some decks that can play 3 cards in like 1 turn. If your opponent knows you have this card in the deck, it definitely makes it a lot weaker. But it can be good as a surprise. It can really be good as a surprise that first people will not think about. And hey, now you suddenly have to like Am I really not gonna play like a third secret here, or a third card because, hey, my opponent might have the red trap. So at some point people will probably like disrespect it a little bit more, and then it can be a really powerful card. But if people know this is in your deck, I think it is like gonna be a little too inconsistent. But I like the card. I definitely like the card as a design wise. Hope that it can like make work, but I don't think it is having like the power level of like the cat trick, for example. Next up is the Dire Frenzy. The Dire Frenzy being also an hunter spell and a 4 mana hunter spell. Dire Frenzy, give a beast +3/+3, shuffle 3 copies into your deck with +3/+3. This is a really interesting one. It is a card that doesn't really like isn't like an inclusion in like one of the current hunter archetypes maybe. Maybe in a mid-range hunter types, but there are some really strong mechanics with this card possible. The Dire Frenzy is specifically good in like some 1 mana combinations, I think. I was thinking of this card and I was like, if you use this card on like the Dire Frenzy on like a Stone Tusk Boar, you make your Stone Tusk Boar a 1 mana 4/4, you copy it 3 times. So you put like 3 times a 1 mana 4/4 charge in your deck. And what if you follow this up with a Tol'vir? Follow this up with the Tol'vir, and you can suddenly draw yourself 2 1 mana cards, draw yourself 2 1 mana Stone Tusk Boars with 4/4 charge, and make super powerful turns playable. So there are some really strong combinations, and I definitely think Stone Tusk Boar is like the best one, as it gives you 1 mana 4/4 charges. You shuffle 3 copies of a 1 mana 4/4 charge in your deck, and then you can follow it up with a Tol'vir by directly drawing 1 mana 4/4 charges. Really strong. So that is like the combination I was like as the first thinking of. I think there are also definitely more combinations in where this can work really well. But definitely 1 mana cards in combinations with Tol'vir. But also in general, like it can be really powerful. +3/+3 is pretty nice. Yes, like combine it a little bit to like Blessing of Kings. Like yes, it is a little bit weaker, but it's already reasonable. And just using it on some reasonable combos. And maybe cheat in ways to like get things on your board. And hey guys, maybe we even can find Angry Chicken to be a viable card at some point, you know? So, I like this card a lot. I definitely think it's a card you want to play in your mid-range hunter. I think it's a powerful card. I think you definitely play it as a one-off, just so people have to play around it too. And I think this is a really good card in a mid-range hunter that plays quite some 1 and 2 mana beast cards too. Next up in the Hunter is one of the new more Witchwood mechanics, where each turn it is in your hand, it swaps the attack and the health. This is a 3 mana 2/5 Duskhaven Hunter, and a 3 mana 2/5 with stealth, or a 3 mana 5/2 with stealth. So yeah, really interesting. The stealth mechanic is definitely what might make this card like power or like make a thing. If it will not have stealth, it will definitely not be better than some current 3 mana 2/5 cards. The cool thing is you can take this one a little bit on the spot. Like sometimes the hunter wants to be aggressive, and then a 3 mana 5/2 stealth can actually be really powerful. But sometimes you want to like play more for the board and at turn 3, and then you want to play this card as a 3 mana 2/5 stealth. So yeah, there is potential. The weakness of this card is it is not a beast itself. What makes like a little bit like... It doesn't have like directly the great synergy in that way. But the stealth mechanic is definitely nice on a card that you can play and aggressive and defensive. And Hunter is definitely a class that wants to do that. In the late game, a 3 mana 5 to stealth can be really powerful. Yeah, not if there is a Void Lord on the board. But in other situations, against other classes, definitely. But if you play a more Zooish matchup, you play for the board. Hey, let's play a 3 mana 2/5 stealth. So there is potential in this card. Not a flashy card. Not super like making the hunter suddenly like broken. But there are things you can like do with this card, and that might bring some potential in. Still, like, the problem with these kind of cards are the insanely good defensive archetypes that are currently around, what might make it a little bit hard to fit in. Alright, and as we haven't seen too much of the Mage yet, and we still haven't seen too much of the Mage, we now got one of the Mage legendaries. It is Toki, the Time Thinker. Toki, the Time Thinker, is a really interesting legendary. It's a 6 mana 5/5 battle cry, add a legendary minion from the past to your hand. So with what Blizzard means with a legendary from the past is a legendary that is in Wild. So legendaries that are currently already in Wild, like Ragnaros, like Sylvanas, and like Dr. Boom. And also with the addition of all the legendaries that are, I guess, are going to Wild, like all the Nazots, the Yoks, the Yashirajas, and all like additional legendaries that are getting in there. So there are some really great combinations. Like, I think if you have like Toki and you can follow it up with, for example, a Dr. Boom, what is insane on curve, play this on 6, play Dr. Boom on 7. Ragnaros, Sylvanas, sick combinations. But there is like a lot of RNG involved in this card, because I don't know how many legendaries there will be, but there will probably be like the Wild combination will be getting close to, if you like include the class legendaries, will probably be around like 50 legendaries. So the range of it is like, maybe that's not true. Maybe it's like 30, but there will be a lot of just the range of what legendary you're gonna get is insane. Hard to say how consistent it will be. You can definitely like put some maths in it, like what are the good outcomes and what are the bad outcomes. But there are definitely some really nice legendaries in combinations of like, hey, let's follow. You're also gonna get these funny things where suddenly you get a mysterious challenger and you put like maybe secrets out of your deck. Or like, yeah, get the Ragnaros, get the Sylvanas. Like, it's a card that suddenly, where you think you are playing standard, you're not playing standard anymore. And that can be a really powerful thing. You're kind of cheating yourself out of the way what is like allowed in the current way of Hearthstone. And you put yourself additional things in. So yeah, can be really powerful. We'll see how much it can make work. But yeah, oh, Mysterious Challenger is not legendary. I'm stupid. Never mind, ignore that. But yeah, a lot of powerful things can make work with this card. We'll see how the range will be. Hard to say, but that you also can get like Reno Jacksons, Brand Bronzebeards, just so many cool things that are gone. Will be really cool. Definitely a really cool designed card. And next up, the latest legendary revealed is the Paladin legendary. The Glass Knight. It's a 4 mana Paladin legendary. 4 mana 4/3 with Divine Shield. Whenever restore yourself health, gain Divine Shield. So more support towards the Divine Shield. We already have seen Bolvar being a little bit revealed the last expansion. Now we are getting the Glass Knight. With a 4 mana 4/3 Divine Shield. It's not bad, but it's not good either, if I have to be honest. 4 mana 4/3 Divine Shield. I combine it with I kind of take a look at the card that we have as a 4 mana 3/3 Divine Shield. I forgot the name. I think it's called Silver Moon. But I'm not like that great of an arena player. So I'm not like too much in these cards. Yes, whenever you restore health, gain Divine Shield. The problem is there are not cheap cards that restore health. Or that like restore health and do something on the board. So that is a little bit my problem with the card. Yes, there are good ways with Ragnaros Lightlord that have like an end of the turn effect, but that's like an 8 mana card. Like, it's so late in the game. Yeah, the card has maybe some potential. Like, I just think about this card and I think about like Minibot, what was like a really good 2 mana card. I think the way this card has to make work is with Lifesteal. Like, the way this card has good synergy is Lifesteal. The way this card has synergy is True Silver Champion. These cards can make this card good. You play this, you follow it up with True Silver Champion, and it can actually be really annoying for your opponent. So there are definitely ways this card has good synergy. It's just like, is that adding up for an additional Divine Shield worth it? It can be a nice add-in. Like if you already have good synergy with lifesteal cards, if there will be a lifesteal card with Rush, that can be a good thing too. Have like we already have one with the 4 mana 3/2 card. If there are more of these cards, Wicker Flame, True Silver, a lot of cards that synergize actually quite well. But is that gonna make like a nice deck together? And is that gonna make like the Glass Knight really make it like consistency? There have been decks where Bolvar almost made the cut. So maybe just with 1 or 2 more cards that can fit in, it can be the card to make work. The Glass Knight, I will definitely not count it out. I definitely think this is a card that is not gonna be like the flashy card of the expansion, but that is gonna like make it in as a fit in Paladin decks. Midrange Paladin is definitely a deck that has a power level with Call to Arms, with Spiker's Teeth, and all these cards around. So this card is definitely a potential card that you should not count out. Next up is for the Paladin is the Cathedral Gargoyle. 2 mana 2/2 Battle Cry. If you're holding a dragon, gain Taunt and Divine Shield. So for 2 mana 2/2 and having a Taunt and Divine Shield is really strong. Really strong. It's even a better mini bot. It's a mini bot with Taunt. The problem is, how many dragons can there be in Paladin? Dragon Paladin has always been an archetype that Blizzard kinda put some effort in, but kinda also almost nothing. There has always been 1 or 2 cards that can like be a Dragon Paladin archetype, but at the end of the day, it never was a thing at all. So I wonder if there is gonna be a little bit more support towards Dragon Paladin, because there's also dragons rotating out. Dragon Paladin, guys. There needs to be more support, because currently Dragon Paladin is not a thing. There are some reasonable late game dragons that are definitely good. There are maybe some mid-range like dragonish cards. Yes, Killbane. It needs some additional support. Currently Dragon Paladin is a little bit too weak. It was actually a thing when Creator was still there. I've actually been playing like some hybrid decks. It can work still maybe with like the Primordial Drake and so on. So there are some defensive cards that work well. Primordial Drake is a really good card in Paladin. So in that way it can be a thing. But I would really say if you want to make Dragon Paladin or like make this card work, you need a little bit more dragon support. Because it's not gonna be good enough if you play 2 dragons in your deck. You need to play 4, maybe 5. It kinda might be a card that you can compare a little bit to Historian in a little bit more defensive way, as being a really good 2 mana drop, but it just doesn't have enough support. There are only good 9 mana dragons around and so on. It needs a little bit more earlier game dragons. There needs to be a card coming out like the Twilight Guardian, and then this card can be, and then like Dragon Paladin might like fire off a bit again. So we need to see more. We have only seen 3 Paladins cards so far, so it's maybe a little bit too early for me to say much about this card. We'll see. And a new Paladin weapon also has been revealed. It is the Silver Sword. The Silver Sword, an 8 mana Paladin weapon, 3/4. So has like the Assassin's Blade stat line. After your hero attacks, give your minion +1/+1. So it's a really card where you wanna like what has like the strong power of you can develop first, then you attack, and then you give all your minions +1/+1. Hard to say how this is gonna work. It's not that it can definitely be a really good card in like a dude Paladin. If you play this card and you then... the problem with this card, it needs a little bit setup, because it's an 8 mana card. But then if you play it and you use it one turn, and then you like play on 5 mana Unleash the Dudes, and you suddenly buff all the dudes for +1/+1. There is like some potential. So the cost of this card is like a little bit high, what might make a little bit of the problem. But in the new Dude Paladin that is so made around all these little tokens, like there is some potential. Maybe it's better than like the Vine Cleaver that's currently around. I think Vine Cleaver is just better though. It's just one turn earlier, a little bit more power, a little bit more consistent. Don't think the Silver Sword is like... It seems too weak and for its cost. The cost is just too high, I think. But we'll see. Bellringer Sentry. So one more Paladin card revealed. 4 mana 3/4 Battle Cry and Death Rattle. Put a secret from your deck into the battlefield. I hope you're not getting too much flashbacks like I did, guys, when I first saw this card. I directly got a little bit flashback on Mysterious Challenger. So, yeah, that already gave me a little bit feelings like, oh, really, are we gonna get this again? So, this card is good, guys. This card is good. This card is definitely nice, strong, and potentially really good. So... the power of like putting a secret on the board and like putting one more. The problem a little bit for Paladin is like they only have 1 mana secrets. So like the secrets, like in the Mysterious Challenger meta, you had the Avenge, what was like such a strong secret with a give a minion +3/+2. Now now what you're gonna get is like Noble Sacrifices. Some other like really low value secrets, so that might make the power down. If there will be another strong secret coming out, it definitely gets a way higher power level. But this is a good card, guys. If this is not gonna get played, it's because of the secrets. This card is, and that is not because of this card. This is a pretty good. This is a really good card. You're gonna see this one play. It will be an aggro paladin, mid-rangey paladins. So, yeah. You get a little bit PTSD maybe from the Mysterious Challenger. I will have a little bit better news for you that it will not be that power level. But it's definitely a really, really strong card. In combination with cards like Call to Arms, it has a really strong early game now for the Paladin. Paladin is one of the classes with the strongest early game. So, aggro Paladins, mid-range Paladin, also with the follow-up they still have during the mid game is definitely one of the a strong archetype that is definitely gonna be yeah, it's gonna be one of the stronger classes, I think, the way things are looking now how to develop. Next up, moving up to the Priest, and the Priest legendary. It is the Lady in White. What a beautiful card. 6 mana 5/5, cast Inner Fire on every minion in your deck. Wow, that is a really interesting effect. That is also gonna be like maybe making like a little bit of a different Priest archetype work. 6 mana 5/5 is stat line wise, you pay a little bit as an investment because the stats are not worth 6 mana. But you have a really powerful Battle Cry. Cast Inner Fire on every minion in your deck. What does that mean? Well, it just means that that you want to have a deck that has a lot of strong health minions. You want to play cards that have like really strong health. And yeah, there are like some really strong cards in the late game that already are really decent cards in Priest. Think about Ysera. Now suddenly Ysera, what already was a decent card in Priest, it's a 9 mana 12/12 withdrawing a card at the end of the turn. But also early game cards. Think about the 4 mana card, what is like the 1/7 with Taunt. Suddenly you can make a 4 mana 7/7 with Taunt. Play it with a Doomsayer, you make a 2 mana 7/7. A lot of early game 6 health minions are already in the game. for turn 3 or 4, and they become 6/6. So they are a really a lot, or like even a net Paygo, 2 mana 4/4, and that can draw a card. So power level wise, it really brings like in power level. And it brings also in cards that you might not have seen play at all ever, suddenly becoming really, really strong. I definitely think this card is powerful. I definitely think it's a powerful card. I definitely think this card is gonna like get testing going and hopefully also play going. It's a little bit hard to say like how powerful it's really gonna be. There will also be, I guess, a little bit cards that are getting weaker. I don't know how much you can play around, but you can still play like a priest deck with Northshire Cleric, and yeah, it's a 3/3. So where at some cards it has like the best like synergy ever. It also has like synergy with cards that are maybe are not like so obvious, but they are just decent enough to run. Priest is a deck that can run a lot of healthy minions. It wants to play healthy minions, like just have a Tar Creeper that is suddenly a 7/5 or a 5/5. Just these little things. Like, for some things you need to, there doesn't even need to be an investment. They are already good in Priest. And Lady in White might just make that Priest archetype a little bit more mid-rangey, a little bit more aggressive. We'll see. Think it is a really cool card. I really like this card. And the second legendary for Priest, Chameleos. 1 mana 1/1. Each turn this is in your hand, transform it into a card your opponent is holding. So, really cool card, little card, 1 mana 1/1, but a really interesting effect. And I think the effect is already powerful, as you can really cheese in some really insanely strong effects. That you have like access to what your opponent can do is really powerful. You know that with Dragonet Operative, for example, that just you sneaking in like one of the win conditions of your opponent class is really strong. So it's a much better Xerus. Like, this card is way better than Xerus. And you also get a lot of information going. And that is something I even like more. What I like so much about this card is, let's say you play this, and suddenly you get so much information. What is in your opponent's hand? You see like, you first see a card from your opponent, then you see another card, then you see another card, then you see another card. And suddenly you just know what your opponent's hand is. Or you know like half of the cards of your opponent's hand. You get so much information on what your opponent's hand is that you can play around it, yet you can play with it. You now suddenly know, hey, my opponent has discarded turn 6, let's play around it. Oh, my opponent wants to play Polymorph. Oh, my opponent wants to play Fireball. Oh, my opponent wants to like play Ultimate Infestation. So you know a lot about information too with this card. And hey, maybe you can also just get that card even yourself. Really nice card. It's like a sniper card to like get so much going. So I really think this card is a really cool card. I like this card a lot. I just really like the card. I don't know how good it's gonna be yet, but I think it is really good too. And the design is really, I really like the design of the priest cards, the priest legendaries. Next up is the Holy Water, a priest removal card. Holy Mother, deal 4 damage to a minion if this kills it, add a copy of it to your hand. So we kind of get a little bit back on like also a little bit of a more infinite thing in the priest, but only to your hand. So it's not like a card that you summon and goes in the deck. It doesn't make like an infinite thing possible. It's just like a really high value card or a value archetype. I don't think this card is good. I think this card is really bad. It's just too much. Like 5 mana deal 4 is just pretty weak, even though you can keep it in your, it keeps getting back to your hand. It's just not something that can keep up. You cannot keep up for 5 mana deal 4 damage to a minion, and that is what your opponent is gonna do. The effect is just too weak for its cost, and it's kind of, it just reminds me on like some cards in the past that had this mechanic too, that go back to the hand. Like think about Tentacle to Arms. That card was way worse, but Like having that mechanic of like, yeah, it's just too slow. It just doesn't do enough. It just needs to do more. Like if that kill, and it also needs to kill. So I don't think you take the minion. Oh, you don't take this card. You take the minion. Deal 4 damage to a minion. If that kills it, add a copy of it to your hand. So you copy the minion. 5 mana, deal 4, get a minion. Now that's even worse. That's also horrible. I mean, then you get a minion. That's so expensive. So if you get the minion, you deal with the minion. It has to be too expensive. So yeah, that's a little bit different, but that is like 5 mana. Let's say it's 5 mana, deal 4 damage, draw a card. Like kind of Starfall idea, right? It's a good arena card. 5 mana, deal 4 damage, draw a card. It's okay. It's okay. It's not that. It's nice. Can be alright, I guess. But I don't think Priest wants to play it necessarily. That's definitely a card more for arena. Next up, moving to the next class, is moving to Rogue. We have seen already some cards for Rogue. Have been all a little bit for different archetypes. And here we got a new Rogue weapon. 4 mana 2/2, Spectral Cutlass. Or Cutlass. Lifesteal whenever you play a card from another cast, gain 1 durability. So, yeah, what card or what deck do you want to play this card in? Well, I guess in like some Thief Rogue. A little bit like there are cards where Rogue can do that. It's a little bit more, maybe more now into Wild, but there are still some cards left. Like this card is not gonna see play in like the current Rogue decks. You can just play Kingsbane. Kingsbane is a super powerful weapon. It's even a weapon that decks are made around. Like there is just a deck that is called Kingsbane Rogue. And if I look at this card is not even close to that power level. This card is not strong. So you need to have it like into like a deck where it's synergized well. But even if it will get like 3 more durability, it's still not a good card. You still need to buff it in attack. Like maybe there will be like cards where you don't want to run like that you draw weapons too much and you just play like 1 deadly poison and then it can be a reasonable weapon. It gains lifesteal directly, so you don't need to play the leeching poison, what like the Kingsbane Rogue has to do. But I don't think it makes up, as it's really hard to make your deck around this card. I don't think it's gonna like work at all. And maybe involved there are some nice things where you can like make a little bit of a Thief Rogue possible. But currently I don't see that working in standard for Rogue. Echo, add a random card to your hand from your opponent's class. So here's a little bit more support towards like the Thief Rogue kind of thing. So this means that you can like make an like Thief Rogue kind of work and maybe the weapon a little stronger. But where I first thought that card is not so strong, this card is a little stronger. This card is kind of nice. For 2 mana, Echo, add a random card to your hand. It's just 2 mana, draw a card. But with Echo. So if you one time just want to draw 1 card, you do it. But maybe at turn 6 you're like, hey, let's draw 3 cards. This might become like a better sprint in that way, because you can like kind of choose, it kind of is already a sprint. 3 mana, draw 3 cards, 4 mana, draw 4 cards, or 6 mana, draw 3 cards, 8 mana, draw 4 cards. It's not from your deck. It's from it's a random card to your hand from your opponent's class, but that can still be alright. And there are of course powerful things, like you can still prep this card and you suddenly draw 1 more. Maybe you can make like spells become cheaper in a way. So there are things that have like benefit. Like it's a little bit weaker than current draw mechanics, but that's because of the Echo mechanic. What is fair? Because of the Echo mechanic, this card is super flexible. Don't underestimate the Echo mechanic, guys. Echo is a really flexible mechanic. You can just fit it in the turn you don't have anything else to do. And then you draw 3 cards. Or you draw just 1 card. Or you draw 5 cards at turn 10 because you have nothing else to do. It is a good card. This is a fine to good card. And now let's move to back to the Mistwraith. Whenever you play an Echo card, gain +1/+1. Well, it can be a card you play at turn 4 and then you draw like 2 or 3 cards and then it's like a 4 mana 5/7. So yeah, that already has some synergy. And if you can like put in 1 or 2 more Echo cards in your rogue deck, this card is already good enough to maybe run. +1/+1 is definitely a mechanic rogue likes too, in the way of like questing adventure work. A miracle rogue can work. But you need like a little bit of an Echo mechanic that supports the miracle way of rogue. The last one kinda did a bit, but I'm still looking one for maybe more. And it needs to be a cheap Echo card. It needs to be a cheap Echo card, 1 mana, 2 mana Echo. I haven't really like seen all the cards. This is the only rogue card with Echo yet. Maybe, I think that this card we have to look at the end of the expansion again, when all the cards have been revealed. But if there is going to be a 1 or 2 mana neutral Echo card, or just another cheap Echo card, this card might become really nice. And Echo is a strong mechanic, so this card can become a strong rogue card. Next up is the Bogshaper. Bogshaper is the Shaman card, and Shaman is the class we have really little information about. So the only thing I can do is looking at this as a card that might just maybe fit in current Shaman archetypes. 7 mana 4/8 elemental. Whenever you cast a spell, draw a minion from your deck. So a 7 mana 4/8 is a little bit underwhelming stat line. It is an elemental, so that is a thing that might work in like an elemental shaman. Whenever you cast a spell, draw a minion from your deck. And that's kind of interesting, because it's looking a little bit more at the lower pool of spells in the shaman. And if you look at the lower pool of spells, there are a lot of spells that are currently like not seeing much play. You think about Totening Might, what is a 0 mana, but maybe like Lightning Bolt, Earth Shock, all these like 0 and 1 mana cards. It's more a card you want to like have in a little bit of a more combo oriented shaman. There is not like a combo oriented shaman currently around, but hey, some 0 mana or 1 mana spells are definitely okay. I was also thinking a little bit maybe like you have Hagata as the new hero power or hero card for Shaman. Maybe there is some synergy there, but that's like the only card we really have seen so far. I can definitely see maybe another spell coming out. What can be really powerful with this card is Unstable Evolution, for example. The only problem is, yeah, you don't want to play it on this card, but have one more minion and you can go super hard on Unstable Evolution, and suddenly you draw your whole deck even. If you can combine this with Grumble, it can be really powerful. So there are some really nice combinations. It's a more card that wants to fit in like a combo shaman. It's a combo card. It wants to make like a little bit more combos possible in shaman. What is cool and what is always something you should never underestimate, because combo decks are either hit or miss. They either are complete rubbish or they are like a real thing and really, really strong. So a little bit too early to call about this card. But cool that Shaman gets a little bit of a more combo-oriented card too. Next up are the Warlock cards, and Warlock card is getting a little bit of more lifesteal support here with the Deathweb Spider. It's a 5 mana 4/6. What has as battle cry: if your hero power took damage this turn, gain lifesteal. And that is actually a really nice card. If you think about it, that the hero power if the hero took damage, yeah, that stacks with hero power. If you already think of that the Warlock has a hero power that deals damage to itself, you can play this at turn 7. First hero power, then play a 5 mana 4/6 with lifesteal. And don't underestimate a 4 attack lifesteal card, guys. A 4 attack lifesteal card is really good. So we already have like the legendary, what is sadly like not a strong card, also for 5 mana. That more synergizes with this card. But the synergizement with taking damage yourself is really good. You have the Kobold Barbarian for 1 mana deals damage to yourself. You have the Homunculus, what is a little less of a not so popular card, but also is a card. And you have the hero power. You have Hellfires and also on. You see how many current cards already. Warlock has some really strong cards. I definitely think the synergy with the hero power and the Librarian are the two cards that are really working well. And this is a card that is pretty strong. It's just a nice lifesteal card. Warlock already has some good Warlocks, like some heal synergy with the Spellstone. But this is maybe like a better way of like use of. You don't want to maybe then run like cards like Scything Soul. You probably don't want to run, but more cards like that are more oriented on the board, because Warlock can already do that really well. I think this card has good potential. I definitely think this card has potential. Next up is another card that deals damage to yourself. It's a 4 mana 3/6 strong stat line. 4 mana 3/6 is a strong stat line. At the start of your turn, deal 1 damage to your hero. So yeah, this card is like it's kind of having a negative effect as battle or like as a start of your turn effect. So you want cards that work with this. And well, we have seen the lifesteal card that works great with this. There is a Spellstone that can work great with this. That lifesteals. So that are the reasons why you would like to run this card. I don't know if that makes up for running this card if you can compare it to like Librarian. Like Librarian is a way better card in my opinion. As a 1 mana 2/1 draw card. Then hey, I deal 1 damage to myself. It's kind of like, yeah, there is not enough, like, there are no power cards in like a more Sudoku Warlock. There are just only Spellstone and the Legendary that has just been revealed that really stack well to deal damage to yourself. Like, there are no other cards yet that are benefiting from, hey, I deal damage to myself. So there is not much reason to run this. And that is the only thing why I don't think this card is going to see play. Why would I play it? What is like the benefit? There is just not much benefit yet to dealing 1 damage to yourself. Besides the Spellstone and the Beast with lifesteal that has just been revealed. There need to be more synergy to justify a 4 mana 3/6 with a little bit negative effect. There have to be more upsides. And another one that fits a little bit in the same area, the 3 mana 2/4 Duskbat. If your hero takes 2 damage this turn, summon 2 1/1 bats. So here's a more like directly way of like getting a little bit of a benefit. The only problem is like the benefit is not that high. It's a Zooey card. It definitely can work well. Like you have maybe also Zooey cards like Homunculus that can work well with the Duskbat. The benefit is just not so high. A 3 mana 2/4 with 2 1/1s is not super high reward. It reminds me a little bit on the Paladin card that was on 3 mana 2/3 that's also summons 2 1/1s. What was like a more supportive card for like a Dragon Pally. That was also not a real archetype, and this kind of fits a little bit the same boat. There need to be a little bit more synergy with, hey, I deal damage to myself, what is my benefit? I just missed a benefit. And yeah, 2 1/1s is a little benefit, sure, but that doesn't make a deck like, wow, I suddenly make 2 1/1s. Ho! I am so happy I dealt damage to myself. I miss a little bit like the power of dealing damage to myself still. So yeah, I think for now Duskbat is more a Duskbat, but hey, things can change. Next up is the Deadly Arsenal, warrior removal card. 6 mana, reveal a weapon from your deck, deal its attack to all minions. So as a reveal, it wants to like play weapons with like really a lot of attack. And then you have to think about the Arcanite Reaper and the Gorehall. And hey, maybe this can be the comeback of the Gorehall. I don't know. Might be a little bit hard because I was first thinking of, hey, that can maybe work like in like a Baku deck with like your upgrading your hero power, but that doesn't really fit like the even archetype of it. So it is more like still a control warrior deck you want to fit this in. It's a little bit hard, and like I don't know if it makes up. Like warrior already has so much good removal. Like, do you really need to run like a reveal weapon card? Like it's kind of expensive to like play that in your deck. But hey, maybe with Gorehall it's just a little bit of a problem if you will draw the Gorehall. So if you draw the Gorehall, then suddenly like you don't really want to run 2 Gorehalls. So there is like a little there are kind of some negative effects with this card too that I think are not making up for it. So I don't think this card is getting played just because of a little bit the inconsistency of it. You can also get a little unlucky and suddenly it's an unplayable card. And I don't see like Reaper and Gorehall being like, oh, I want to run these cards. So not so perplexed on this card yet. Where I wasn't really like that's like on the last card as a removal warrior card. Maybe this Woodcutter X can make it. What do we get back here, guys? We got a 2 mana weapon back here. 2 mana 2/2 weapon. Death Rattle, give +2/+1 to a random friendly rush minion. So we got it back here, a 2 mana weapon. And don't underestimate this card, guys. 2 mana weapons are very good. 2 mana weapons are very good. It's way a big difference if a card is 2 mana or 3 mana, especially for the warrior. That doesn't do much at turn 2. There are not many cards that fit warrior at turn 2. So having a weapon at turn 2 is insane for warrior, guys. It's insane. Like, oh, you guys know how we call the Fiery War Axe. It was called the Fiery Wind Axe. Sure, a 3/2 weapon is a difference compared to a 2/2 weapon. But a big reason why it was also called the Fiery Wind Axe was because of the 2 mana cost. A 2 mana cost was just a big thing for the card. And now we have here another one. And this is, I think, a really like, yeah, this is really strong for warrior. This can be really what warrior needs. It also fits the archetype of maybe like the even archetype a bit. So that can be a thing. And the Death Rattle, give +2/+1 to a random friendly rush minion. I already said this earlier. Tempo Warrior. Maybe Tempo Warrior can bring like a little bit of the comeback. Tempo Warrior has been a deck that was kind of popular 2 years ago. What was like the warrior archetype. It played a lot of like early game minions, Frothing Berserker, Korkon Elite. And with like cards like Battle Rage, even fitting in Armorsmith often, was really strong. It was a deck that was one of the, not the tier 1 but the tier 2 decks. And I think that Tempo Warrior can be the archetype that is also gonna work really good with Rush. The Rush Tempo Warrior, it can definitely be a thing. I think this deck is having the most potential to become like the powerful Rush deck. So I really want to make this deck work. And Tempo Warrior, it is a deck that also is a little bit in my heart. And it was a deck that I used at the European Championship to get myself the European Championship title. So I really want to make this archetype work. It's a little bit, maybe I'm a little bit too biased in that way. But a 2 mana warrior weapon, it's gonna make really great work in Tempo. Warrior has so much 2/3. Warrior has like so many good 2, 3, and 4 mana cards that can be mid-rangey and aggressive. That can be good against aggro and control. It's gonna be having a big problem against Void Lords. It's not gonna work solve the Warlock issue for it. But the rest, yes. So I have hopes. I just ban Warlock, and then this Tempo Rush Warrior can be like a really strong thing. Rush is definitely a really strong mechanic, and I think Warrior benefits the most from it. So I believe in this. Next up, going to a neutral cards, it is the Voodoo Doll. A 3 mana 1/1. Battle Cry. Choose a minion, Death Rattle. Destroy a chosen one. So yeah, but it's a little bit of a trolley card, a Voodoo Doll, of course. That's why it is called the Voodoo Doll. It's a suicide card that then can be like an assassinate. And it's actually having quite some synergy in some classes. So this card is definitely good. Or can be good. It's a card that you want to run in either cards that synergize well with the card, or classes that have like hard time removing. Classes with like hard time having single removal are, for example, Druid. Play this in your Druid card and you suddenly have an Assassinate in your Druid. If you like Moonfire, Rev this card or anything, or just like play it and you kill it the turn after. So it's a good card in Druid in that way. But it can be a really good card in Warlock. I think this is going to be like a card you're going to run in your Warlock. Because if you play this at turn 4 or like any turn in the game, but you play this and you just play Mortal Coil on the card, you just play Deval on the board, it even is a Deval setup, this card is sick. This card is really good. Like, hey, I choose you and now I Mortal Coil my own minion and I draw a card and hey, you are gone. So a really strong card in Warlock. This is just going to be an include, I think, in probably even current control Warlock, Cube Warlock archetypes. It's a really strong card because the Warlock is a little bit like, it's a little bit missing like the really cheap removal. Like, you don't have to run Scything Soul anymore when you can run this. So maybe, like, I actually think there's a little buff to Control Warlock. Like, Control Warlock has the best synergy with like the class cards in it, and has not the best. They have good removal, but all the removals are high cost. So this with like a Mortal Coil and Deval setup, there's some really strong removal. So yeah, Blizzard was a bit of like, Blizzard was like, hey, let's buff Warlock. There are classes where like I don't think it's gonna work, and that's like in Mage and Shaman, because they can just run Hex, Polymorph. Why would I run Voodoo Doll? But we'll see. A cheap AoEs can work well with this card too, like maybe like Volcanic Potion, for example. So there are things that also have good synergy in that way. Cool card, really cool card. Witch Cauldron, another card, a neutral card, 3 mana 0/4. After a friendly minion dies, add a random shaman spell to your hand. So it has a little bit the same card as Cultmaster in the way of, hey, you want to trade it, and then you draw yourself a card. But it's much worse. It's a lot worse, actually. Because the stat line is really bad. 0 attack is really bad. You at least want 1 attack. Like, cards with 0 attack are really... And instead of, like, drawing a card, you add a random card to your hand. A random shaman card. Sure, there are still a lot of good cards. But that inconsistency, this being so bad of a stat line, and this just not having any synergy with friendly minions dying, because hey, I play a random pot on the board, and that's it. So yeah, I really don't like this card. It's probably one of the weakest cards out of the set. It gotta be the one of the weakest. 8 mana, Gilnean, a Royal Guard. It's an 8 mana 3/8 Divine Shield Rush. At each turn this is in your hand, swap its attack and health. So an 8 mana 3/8 Divine Shield or an 8 mana 8/3 Divine Shield with the availability of attacking directly. I mean, cards like this will always be a nice arena card. Will always be things that you're probably gonna pick up in your arena deck quite some. So there it already is a fit. A little bit hard to see if this can make it in Constructed. Like maybe in some Divine Shield Paladin deck. Paladin can be also a decent rush thing. I was even thinking of maybe in like a Rushy Warrior deck with some other cards that synergy well with it. So yeah, there are things where this card can make it work. It's not really like a card that I can say too much about. It's just a reasonable value card for a neutral minion that, yeah, maybe it can be here and there a little bit. And it definitely is a thing that you're gonna play in your arena here and there. And then we will see if it can be anywhere in Constructed also. And the last card for now, guys, is the Witchwood Grizzly. And wow, what a neutral card has been revealed here, guys. I was so surprised when I saw this card. 5 mana 3/12. Taunt, Battlecry, lose 1 health for each card in your opponent's hand. What an anti-aggro killer. Wow, wow, Wow. Insane, guys. Insane card. It's a little bit of a card that kind of fits the... between the Sludge Belcher and Healbot in. Like, it's a little bit in that spot where, like, yeah, you lose... with the taunt of the card, like 5 mana. Like, yeah, if you play it on curve, but your opponent often doesn't have more than 4 cards. So it's a 5 mana 3/8 in that way. But also, like, if you have other ways to get it on the board even, it even sneaks in more value. Yeah, there are even other cool, yeah, Lady in White, I don't know about that. But what is also great synergy, guys, is Oakheart. This card is so good with Oakheart. That's a great synergy. I think this card is so strong for a neutral card. It's kind of like the neutral Void Lord a little bit. That we now have access to in other classes. So, really strong card. Really strong anti-aggro card. If the meta is not all about Void Lords, yeah, then, or like in a Void Lord meta, yeah, this card is maybe a little bit meh. But in any aggro or mid-range meta, wow, you gonna make aggro decks really salty with this card, guys. Sick card, sick card, sick card. And I think like with decks like that can bring this in Oakheart decks too. Sick. It can be a really good card in mid-range decks because the power line of the stats. So really, really strong card. I'm sure about that. So yeah, that was the review for so far, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. Gonna follow this up by I think 1 more review or 2 more, and then we're gonna even do an overall review on the whole Witchwood set. We are getting close to the expansion. I hope it already comes out next week and otherwise in 2 weeks. Really excited and looking for more when we get the whole set getting in here.